That's the thing about life. It can be unpredictable, but your dreams need not be. How far would you go to make your dreams come true? How close are you to reaching those goals set by you? While others focus on a new normal, you focus on a new beginning. Look around for what inspires you. Build your narrative. After all, it's your story to tell. Take a chance. Take a leap. Begin your study abroad journey with us.
Sorry. Can you hear me? Bisa dengar?
Bisa, Pak.
Oke. Yes. Selamat malam, jam pukul 8.02 sekarang, waktu Jakarta. Kita kedatangan tamu, ini dari ASU, Arizona State University, dengan Mr. Miles Campos. Am I correct pronouncing?
That's right. Yes.
Dan Ibu Tiffany sebagai host juga di Indonesia dari Kaplan International. Kita akan membahas mengenai Arizona State University secara menyeluruh, dan beberapa pertanyaan kalau adik-adik dan bapak-bapak dan ibu sekalian sangat tertarik untuk mengetahui sekolah Arizona State University. Ya. Oke. Ini dengan pertanyaan pertama sekarang mengenai ASU Arizona State. Saya tahu Arizona State itu kan di tengah ya, Bu ya.
Betul, Pak.
Ya, location, ranking, sama program bisa dijelaskan nggak mengenai ini gitu, sekolahnya gitu langsung?
Oke, boleh. Selamat malam semuanya teman-teman. Terima kasih banyak untuk joining with us untuk another session. Mungkin beberapa teman-teman yang udah kemarin join another session juga ya, ada saya juga kebetulan. Hari ini ada saya lagi. Jadi kebetulan saya akan hadir dengan another my colleague Miles di sini dari ASU. Mungkin to give a brief information untuk dari locationnya sendiri. Nanti kita akan exploring furthermore dari explanation dari Miles. Jadi untuk give a brief information, kalau untuk ASU sendiri locationnya itu di state of Arizona, obviously, dan dari lokasinya itu adalah di Phoenix. Jadi Phoenix itu adalah capital city dari Arizona State. Jadi which is kalau untuk teman-teman, you don't really have to worry kalau misalkan kalian udah lands di Phoenix, even kita cuma takes like 15 minutes dari airport ke kampus kita. Dan jadi kita punya ada 4 different location juga dari kampus kita. Dan untuk in terms of ranking, itu kita 117 untuk National University. Dan rankingnya itu 53 untuk Public University. Mungkin untuk giving more explanation about the rankings and the location, I'll just pass it over to Miles. If you can give like an overview about our rankings and also the locations and also, what kind of activities that the students can expect when they already arrive in Phoenix, Miles?
Sure. Thank you. So I can give a little bit of basic information. I'm sure that most of the students here have probably heard of ASU before, but I'll still give a little bit of a brief overview. So one thing to start with about ASU is just how big the university is. So we are the largest university in the United States. This semester, we have about 134,000 students enrolled at ASU, with about 14,000 international students. So we are overall about 10% international. That means that Indonesian students coming to study here at ASU are able to study with other Indonesian students. I think last semester we had about 47 Indonesian students start with us here at ASU. So there is a sizable Indonesian population. But at the same time, they're going to be able to study with students from about 135 different countries, as well as about 90% of the population is that domestic American population. So they do get that very American experience as well. As far as rankings, I heard you say a little bit about the public and overall ranking. Like you said, we are ranked 117 overall here in the US. Now, when I say we're ranked 117, it's important to remember that here in the United States, we have over 4,000 universities. So to have a ranking that high is actually quite amazing. Some people kind of compare it to the UK or Australia, where they really only have a few universities. So 117 is a fantastic ranking. Public ranking is 54. So really strong public rankings as well. Now, as far as majors go, again, we have, with the size of our university, we have a lot of major options as well. At the undergraduate level, we have about 350 different major options. At undergraduate level, about 200 different programs students can do. So really anything a student wants to study, they can study at ASU. Most of those are going to be quite high ranking here in the US. Some of our most popular programs are going to be things like business. Engineering is very popular, including everything from computer science all the way up to robotics and artificial intelligence. Art and design is very strong as well. That includes things like architecture, industrial design, and of course, public affairs, things like public policy, public health. These kinds of programs are really, really strong. A lot of other rankings I think students are going to really care about, things like top 10 in the world for employer-student connections, top 10 in the nation for being a Best Buy college, number 10 in undergraduate teaching. So a lot of other rankings outside of just those pure US News rankings that I think are going to be important to a lot of students as well. Now, I think you had asked about location. So we are here in Arizona, which is in the southwest part of the United States. So we're right next to California and right next to Mexico. So it is pretty easy for students to be able to visit, California, to visit Las Vegas. We have the Grand Canyon, if that's something you'd ever wanted to visit here in Arizona. So we are in the Southwest US. Now, we have 5 different campuses here at ASU. Most of them are going to be in the Metro Phoenix area, which is the video that you just saw. Phoenix itself is the 5th largest city in the United States. So we are bigger than Philadelphia, bigger than Seattle, bigger than Boston, bigger than Washington, D.C., bigger than San Francisco. So we are a big city. And with that comes pretty much everything you'd expect from a big city as well. We have good infrastructure, good transportation, a lot of fun things to do. So if a student came here and told me they were bored, I would have to wonder how that's even possible. There's just so much fun stuff to do here. If you like sports, it's a great place to end up. If you like outdoors, it's a great place to end up as well. Just a really nice, easy, good place to live. Great place for a student.
This is really emphasizing because we have 4 different campuses, especially in the Great Phoenix. I think definitely students kind of curious about our main campus, Tempe. Can you just exploring more about how huge the campus and also what kind of facilities? Because I think some of the students who asked me previously about ASU, they also interested in sports.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, obviously, it could be something that just really kind of the center in Phoenix. So, what kind of sports are actually kind of popular there? What kind of sports that they can just getting involved, or maybe they watch over the weekend if they actually enroll as ASU students?
Sure. So, speaking a little bit more about the Tempe campus in particular, that's where my office is. So I'm at the Tempe campus, and I graduated from ASU as well. And when I went there, I studied the Tempe campus too. So yeah, it's like I said, it's just huge. If you've never been to the Tempe campus, it's really difficult to imagine just exactly how big it is. It's like it's its own city. So as far as, dorms, for example, there's about 13, 14 different dorms, all of which hold thousands of students. We have a football stadium there. So in the US, you have kind of basketball schools and you have football schools. That's American football. You have basketball and football. We are a football school. So when we have American football games there, our stadium holds about 70,000 people at one time. So, it's a stadium the size of a lot of national stadiums in a lot of different countries. We do have our own theater on campus. which is one of the few places in the United States that you can see Broadway shows outside of New York. So we host the same Broadway shows as they would have like in New York or just a handful of other cities that students can get discount tickets to. Just to tell you how big the Tempe campus is, there are 7 Starbucks on the Tempe campus. That's how big it is. So, we have a couple different bookstores, a huge gym that students can work out at. So I believe it's the largest student gym in the entire country. So it's absolutely huge. Multiple indoor basketball courts, indoor running tracks, classes that students can take. Any kind of activity you want to do to work out, you can. Even things like tennis and ping pong, swimming, things like that. There's a big field outside where students can play soccer, students can play rugby, students can play cricket. We do have clubs and sports teams for all of those that students can participate in. There's an esports section, so if students want to do esports or play video games and things like that, they can do that at the gym as well. Just huge facilities everywhere.
You practically just name any kind of sports, even the esports you definitely can just find on campus, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine a sport you couldn't be able to participate in. And, we even have, when it comes down to student clubs, we have over 1,000 different student clubs that students can join. And a lot of those are based around different sports and activities as well. So not just the organized sports, but if you like hiking, if you like riding horses, if you like going on long distance bike rides and things like that. People will ride their bikes for 200 kilometers and stuff. Pretty much anything you'd like to participate in, there's a way to find how to do that on campus.
Okay, great. So let me just give like a bit translation about like a few points that you just mentioned to the audience. Mungkin untuk teman-teman cuma untuk memberikan sedikit translation ya. I believe teman-teman pasti udah ngerti semua apa yang tadi di-mention oleh Miles, tapi untuk giving just a few highlights untuk dari campus kita sendiri, it's a very huge. Jadi tadi Miles juga mention bahwa even kalau misalkan teman-teman, I think kalau saya bisa bilang banyak juga kayak orang-orang atau yang kayak saya lihat banyak yang lagi liburan ya ke Phoenix biasanya, itu mereka pasti akan accidentally came across atau pass by untuk dari campusnya sendiri. Jadi saking besarnya pun mungkin bukan student gitu kan, bener-bener kayak just a regular people walking across the street, itu mungkin kayak bisa ngelewatin kampus kita saking besarnya. Residential dari building kita pun lebih dari 10. Tadi Miles juga udah mention kita even punya 7 stores ya untuk Starbucks sendiri di campus kita. Dan in terms of sports, karena memang banyak sekali juga teman-teman yang get back aku, mungkin ada beberapa juga students yang tanya, oke, kalau di Phoenix apa nih mungkin strong sportnya, apakah football, apakah basketball, apakah any kind of sports. Dan tadi Miles juga udah mention bahwa biasanya kalau di Amerika itu terbagi ada 2, jadi ada basketball dan juga football school. Nah, AECC sendiri kita ada football, tapi saat dari football, obviously kita punya our own stadium, kita punya our own theater. Jadi benar-benar saking besarnya, I think whatever sport yang kalian name, kita definitely kita punya juga untuk fasilitasnya. Jadi kalian nggak perlu khawatir, gitu.
Oke. Jadi sebenarnya kayak jumlah kalau pelajar Indonesia itu berapa Mbak ya kira-kira ya? Atau Asian gitu?
Saya bisa bilang masih kurang lebih di angka 100-an sih, Pak. Jadi memang cukup, mungkin kalau case-nya saya bisa bilang AECC ini sendiri cukup, kita mulai berkembang untuk freshman entry. Jadi belakangan ini kita banyak mendapatkan aplikasi dan students itu masuk sebagai freshman regardless dia di bachelor's atau di master degree. Tapi dulunya memang kebanyakan AECC students itu jatuhnya ada transfer. Jadi sebelum kita actively doing activities, this kind of activities in Indonesia, memang kebanyakan untuk aplikasi yang kita dapatkan itu lebih banyak untuk transfer. Jadi mungkin sudah complete di US, 2 years of community college, atau misalkan mereka complete 2 tahun di Indonesia, dan mereka transfer di ASU gitu. Dan programnya tadi Miles juga udah mention bahwa banyak sekali. Jadi in terms of ranking, mungkin tadi aku juga mau highlight kalau untuk ranking sendiri pun, untuk business school kita we're in the top 20 Indonesian. Terus untuk engineering pun kita ranking in the top 40. Untuk computer science, kita spesifiknya juga punya AI, artificial intelligence, kita juga ada, dan itu masuk ke top 50 di United States. Jadi untuk teman-teman mungkin ada banyak untuk program yang bisa di-explore aside from those programs that I just mentioned, tapi mungkin yang paling sering ya kita dapetin kalau di Indonesia itu kan engineering, computer science. I think even beberapa fair yang aku baru aja did for the past month itu bener-bener hampir 80% nanyanya computer science gitu. Jadi ini mungkin something yang aku juga mau highlight sih gitu.
Oke. Jadi computer science-nya very popular major di situ ya.
Yes, dan juga bisnis. Kalau bisnis pun Kalau aku particularly untuk supply chain itu kita nomor 2 di US, tapi untuk
Oh,
overall business school kita itu ada di ranking 20 gitu. Yes. I
so
think aku mau nanya ke Miles juga kali ya. Miles, if we're talking about many times that I mentioned to the students that Phoenix is actually considered to be a Silicon Desert. You know, that's where most of the companies located their HQ at, or maybe like having a big branch and maybe like aside from their HQ and then they having quite a big office in Phoenix. Can you just tell us more about, you know, the career opportunities and also what does the Silicon Desert kind of like means to ASU students and also for international students in particular?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, a lot of people have called us the Silicon Desert. That's compared to the Silicon Valley in California. The amount of tech growth and tech investment here in Arizona has been really unbelievable. So what we're finding is a lot of companies are deciding to establish headquarters here, especially manufacturing. One of the major industries now that's growing is semiconductor manufacturing. So Intel here is a major employer. ASU actually sends more engineers to Intel than any other university in the entire world. So a lot of our students are going to end up at Intel. They're building a second factory here right now, which I think was over a $20 billion investment that they're building. TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Company, is building a major facility here as well. That's similar levels of investment, $20-30 billion, building massive facilities here to create world-class chips. They haven't finished building it yet, but I have been out to the site. And basically, you go out there and just as far as the eye can see is just massive construction. It looks like they're building like an airport out there or something. It's just absolutely huge. So those are all job opportunities as well. Another thing that we're finding is a lot of companies that people typically associate with Silicon Valley, the Bay Area, California, are actually leaving California. And they're going to basically 3 main places. They're going to Arizona, they're going to Texas, and then they're going a little bit to Seattle and a little bit to Salt Lake City. And so a lot of them are moving to places like Phoenix. So what people often have associated with Silicon Valley companies are kind of not Silicon Valley companies anymore. And then another thing that you had already mentioned is a lot of companies want to establish their second headquarters here. So especially a lot of companies, not just tech, but especially tech, but not just tech, want to establish, if they're an East Coast company, they want to establish like an operations center or a second headquarters in the western part of the US. And often they're choosing Phoenix for where to put those. And with those typically come a lot of job opportunities, not just for engineers, but also for anybody like in supply chain that you mentioned, HR, accounting, anything like that. There's a lot of opportunities there. And then a kind of third major area for tech here is going to be those data centers. So companies like Apple, Microsoft putting their huge data centers here. Now, the reason they like to put them here in Phoenix is because our environment and our weather is so stable here. We don't have earthquakes, we don't have blizzards, we don't have tornadoes, we don't have floods, we don't have anything like that. So they know they can put their data centers here, and it can be a very, very stable place for them to put their operations and their data.
Oh, okay, that's great because I also heard that Phoenix is one of the center of aviation as well, right? Because like Phoenix is actually having one of the most stable weather throughout the year.
Yeah. So it is pretty stable. I think a lot of students would be curious about the weather here. Oftentimes when people think of Arizona and think of Phoenix, the first thing they think of is that it's a desert. Oftentimes they're asking me, oh, do you have camels? Do you have sand? Things like that. No, it's a very, very different kind of desert. But it is a desert environment. It is dry and it is warm. So for example, it's February 15th here, which up here in the Northern Hemisphere is wintertime here. So our lows in the wintertime usually get down to, like, the coldest it gets is maybe about 4 or 5 degrees Celsius. So, it doesn't get below 0 here. It doesn't snow here in Phoenix or anything like that. So students coming from Indonesia don't have to deal with, the weather like they would have to in the Northeast or in New York or Chicago or something like that. I think yesterday it was about 25 Celsius here. So that's pretty nice for wintertime weather. It's dry. So even when it's warm here, even when it's hot here, you don't get like that sticky, wet filling or anything like that. We don't really sweat very much just because it's so dry. So really, really nice. Summertime can be really warm. It does get into the 40s here. But again, it's dry. And when you're on campus or when you're in your classrooms or in your apartment, everywhere has air conditioning inside. Not 98%, not 99%, 100% of everywhere will have air conditioning inside. So it's not too bad. But yeah, so that's kind of the weather here.
But then, like, if the students actually, I mean, like during the winter time, but then, like, if they're driving quite a couple hours away to maybe like the southern or maybe like the northern part of Phoenix, they still be able to find some kind of like snow, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Because like some of the students asking me about that kind of question normally.
No, for sure. Right now, in February, it's in the mid-20s here in Phoenix. If I wanted to today in this afternoon, I could go swimming outside. No problem. But, I can drive 2 hours, like an hour and a half, 2 hours north and go skiing. So we have ski resorts that are open right now. So you can go skiing, you can go snowboarding there. So, students don't have to live every day in that cold, snowy environment. But if you want to get that, for a day or two in the wintertime, you can still go do that pretty easy.
Because Indonesian students, I mean, like definitely they tend to just like create their own kind of like content on Instagram, so they still be able to find some kind of like snow background.
They can go take those Instagram photos in the snow and stuff like that.
I guess. Great. So speaking of the programs and also the care opportunities, because I also many times mentioned to the students that for students who study in the US, they still be able to earn kind of like a permission to extend their stay, that's called OPT. So can you just explain more about the OPT and then like, what's the difference between the regular OPT and also the STEM program? And also, does ASU offer any kind of like a spatial that really strong in particular for STEM? So students kind of like be able to at least visual, maybe like choosing those programs that are actually going to be high in demand, and also align with it, you'll be able to, kind of like earn the STEM OPT pass upon the completion?
Sure. So OPT, like you said, is a program. It stands for Optional Practical Training. This is a program that comes in after students graduate from a bachelor's or a master's program here in the US. What it allows them to do is stay here in the US and work on their student visa. So they don't need a work visa to work. They're still considered a student during that time, even though they're working full time and they've already graduated. Now, the standard length of OPT is 1 year that students can stay here in the US. However, if you study a STEM major, that's your science, technology, engineering, mathematics, which is a legal designation as a university program here in the US. It has to be designated by the government as a STEM program. The university can't just say this is a STEM program. If it's a STEM program, they're eligible to stay for up to 3 years. After that, they'd be having to figure out their next steps in terms of where they want to work or finding out how to get sponsorship or something like that. But they can get 3 years of work experience, still considered a student on their student visa through OPT. Now, in order for students to be eligible for those 3 years of OPT, they do have to study a STEM major at their university. Now, as I mentioned before, when you're talking about the different majors here at ASU, we've got a lot of different options for majors. So at the undergraduate level, overall, we have 350 different majors. About half of those are STEM majors. At the graduate level, we have about 200 different programs, and about a third of those are STEM majors. So a lot of our majors here at ASU would make students eligible to stay for that 3 years of OPT. Now, as far as what majors are STEM majors, most anything in engineering is going to be a STEM major. We have STEM majors in the School of Business. We have STEM majors in the School of Design. We have STEM majors in liberal arts and sciences. So just because so you don't just have to do engineering. You don't just have to do hard sciences to be considered a STEM major. So yeah, we have STEM majors in almost every single school and every single college here at the university.
Yes, I think okay, let me just translate a bit. Jadi untuk teman-teman mungkin untuk memberikan gambaran tadi kan Miles juga ada mention ya. Jadi basically ketika kalian complete your bachelor's or maybe master degree, jadi ketika kalian memang undergo your study di US, itu kalian bisa mendapatkan extension lagi. Jadi dengan student visa, bukan working visa. Jadi ketika kalian extend untuk student visa kalian, ketika kalian udah lulus, itu kalian bisa cari kerja di sana. Jadi basically untuk OPT ini for the first 12 months itu kalian bisa cari. Mungkin kalian mau full time, mau part time, mau volunteer, mau just fully untuk seeking for job, mungkin masih belum ada yang dapat benar-benar klik gitu ya. Jadi kalian mau cari dulu, that's absolutely fine. Nah, kalau untuk di US sendiri itu ada 2 tipe. Jadi ada yang regular dan juga ada yang STEM designated OPT. Jadi kalau misalkan regular, obviously untuk semua students any kind of program yang kalian study itu kalian dapat kind of like free lah 12 bulan yang pertama. Tapi kalau misalkan kalian memang belajar untuk ngambil program STEM atau STEM program ataupun STEM approved program, itu kalian bisa extend lagi untuk another 2 years. Jadi in total kalian bisa potensial bisa 3 tahun di sana. Dan mungkin yang aku pengen highlight di sini adalah sekarang ini tidak semua university itu mengharuskan students itu harus ngambil STEM. Tadi kan Mel sudah mention ya, STEM itu ada Science, Technology, Engineering, Mathematics. Mungkin kan pasti teman-teman juga, mungkin Pak Ferry juga sering ketemu students yang nggak mau ngambil science gitu, maksudnya memang background-nya IPS gitu kan. Tapi mungkin I'm happy to announce bahwa untuk dari AECC sendiri, tadi Mel sudah mention untuk level undergraduate, itu even half-nya, itu mereka adalah STEM approved. Dan juga untuk level graduate, itu 1/3 itu STEM approved. Jadi even sekolah desain kita, untuk sekolah bisnis kita, itu juga ada yang STEM. Jadi teman-teman nggak perlu khawatir. Berarti kalau untuk anak bisnis, there's no chance at all untuk aku bisa dapetin yang STEM approved OPT tadi nih. Nah, itu jawabannya, good news-nya itu kalian masih bisa. Jadi mungkin kalau aku bisa memberikan kayak sedikit informasi, contohnya aja yang kayak bisnis sekolah bisnis kita itu kita juga ada international trading, jadi itu semacam supply chain program. Nah, itu adalah STEM approved. Jadi mungkin teman-teman kalau mau consider itu definitely one of the top program that offered by AECU. Dan contohnya untuk company apa sih yang di bidang untuk supply chain? Karena kan ini katanya AECC strong di supply chain. Amazon. Doc center-nya itu yang the largest-nya itu adalah di Phoenix. Even though HQ mereka di Washington, itu mainly hanya untuk, kind of like an HQ, tapi untuk doc center-nya sendiri, itu yang maksudnya kayak nyimpen barang dan segala macam, itu paling gede di AECU. Gitu. Jadi di Phoenix. Jadi memang kalau saya bisa bilang teman-teman bisa chat aja ke AECC, nanti bisa kontak juga ke aku untuk kalau misalkan kalau jurusan yang ini masuk STEM program apa enggak, apakah aku ada possibility untuk bisa stay di sana nih for another 2 years gitu kan, karena kan obviously students ketika mereka sekolah ke US pasti intentionnya dan dreamnya juga pun akan stay back di US gitu.
Yeah, there's 2 things that you mentioned that I'd like to that I think you mentioned that I'd like to I'd like to mention as well. So I've heard you mention supply chain management a couple of times.
Yeah.
This is a fantastic major here at the university. I think especially for international students. So what I found is that this is a very popular major for international students. It's also very popular for American students that are dual majoring in supply chain and a foreign language. The reality is that, when students go to work in supply chain after they graduate, it's not just going to be those important skills that they learned during their major, but in today's global interconnected world, some very important skills for working in supply chain are going to be the ability to speak multiple languages, the ability to work with people from different backgrounds and different cultures and different countries. And the reality is that international students are typically better at that than the American students are, just because they've had such an international experience. So usually when I see international students studying supply chain, graduating, going in the workforce, they tend to get even better job offers, and I think a lot of the American students do. As a undergraduate student at ASU, I lived with international students for all 4 years of college. So I do know a lot about the international student experience here at the university. A lot of my international friends studied supply chain and went on to have pretty amazing careers working in supply chain. So personally, I do think that's a great option for international students interested in different careers. And you can go in so many different directions with supply chain. The other thing I wanted to mention is when it comes to students working and having jobs and things like that, there's not just OPT that comes after they graduate. Students, you have to remember, are able to work on campus while they're a student at the university as well. So here in the US, students can work up to 20 hours per week on campus while school is in session. They can work more than that during summer and winter break, but when school's in session, they can work 20 hours. This is the same at every university in the United States. Every university will allow you to work up to 20 hours per week, but you do have to find a job on campus. Now, being the largest university in the United States, with that comes a lot of different job opportunities for international students to work on campus as well. You might end up working in a coffee shop, in the bookstore, maybe in one of the restaurants, in the library. You might end up working in an office, even my office you might end up in. I've had students that I've worked with, and before they even arrived here at ASU, and now they are working in the same office as me. So there's a lot of different options. Now, personally, I think international students having a job on campus is a really, really good idea, and I would encourage everybody to do it. Not just is it a great way to earn a little bit of extra money, but it's also a great way to make friends, to learn about American culture, to become a little bit more integrated into the university experience. So besides the OPT after you graduate, I would really encourage students to look at on-campus work while they're studying as well.
Okay, so speaking of employability when it comes to part-time, so there's a lot of questions actually coming in that will internship possible to do it in the United States, and also when they study in the ASU, does some of the programs, or maybe like do all the programs that offered by ASU is actually requiring them to study to take up internship, or will it be kind of like an optional program?
It's going to be optional. I can't really think of many programs that would require you to do an internship. But a lot of students do want to do internships, and the reality is about half of international students will do an internship before they graduate.
Okay.
But it's typically optional. Most programs are able to work with students to build that into their program, but it's not required if you don't want to. Typically, when students are doing those internships, they're using a program called CPT, which is a little bit different than OPT. So yeah, internships are certainly an option and a really, really good idea for most students, especially if you're doing like an engineering major, computer science, or something like that. It's almost necessary. But yeah, your programs can work with you on that to build that into your program.
Will that be hard, or maybe like, in which level, how hardly for the international students to find internship, or maybe like, as long as you're actually being active and just really work together with the career service, and then obviously they will just most likely getting the internship?
I think it's the latter. You do have to work for it. You do have to be, very proactive. You do have to work for it. You do have to be applying for tons of stuff. Apply for lots of different internships. Go to multiple interviews. It is going to take some work, yeah. But if you're proactive and you're going out and you're really trying and you're really looking for one and you're really making your best effort, it can typically work out for you. And that's great practice for when you graduate and go to find a job as well, because that's the reality when you go to find a job as well. So nothing's just going to be handed to you. You do have to be proactive. And
yes, exactly. True. So, but then like for ASU, they do have the career fair, right? Or maybe like, is there any other channel, or maybe like during this pandemic, maybe some of the career fair is shifted to the virtual version? Can you just tell us more about that kind of like,
Sure.
kind of like the things?
Yeah, there are career fairs all the time at ASU. Over the last couple of years, most of them have been virtual, but we're already returning to in-person fairs. So there are several of them over February and March that I've seen. So you'll be on campus and you'll see student go skateboarding past wearing a suit and tie, and there must be a career fair today or something like that. But so there are, most of the career fairs are now in person again. They happen all the time. So as far as resources that students have access to, we have a career services on campus that will help students find internships and jobs, help them prepare their resumes, do practice interviews. Once they do get a job, they even help them with salary negotiation and benefits negotiations. And then besides the overall university career services, business and engineering both have their own career services as well. So for business and engineering students, they have 2 offices that they can use to help them find opportunities. There are career counselors that are helping set them up with opportunities and find companies. There are career fairs. We have a system called Handshake that the university uses that is kind of like platform like Facebook that allows students to find employers that are looking for them, and all of that. So that's a big way that students find jobs as well. So there is a lot of resources out there to assist students once in either finding an internship or job, and even once they get one.
Oke, jadi mungkin untuk teman-teman yang kalau misalkan aku bisa mention sedikit aja untuk translate a bit. Jadi kalau untuk internship memang most of the programs that offered by AECU memang tidak mandate students untuk take on an internship. Tapi internship definitely akan sangat-sangat highly di-encourage. Mungkin bukan hanya di AECU ya, I think speaking of generally education dan juga university di US, mungkin tidak semua, karena definitely ada beberapa countries yang memang mandatorikan students untuk ngambil internship, tapi ada juga beberapa negara yang mungkin optional ya, karena kan obviously kita juga nggak mau in the way untuk kayak forcing the students to take on internship if they don't wish to. Jadi memang kalau untuk US sendiri ya kita memang giving the decision-nya itu langsung ke student, apakah mereka mau ngambil internship apa tidak. Tapi obviously untuk dari supportnya sendiri, ya tadi Mas juga udah mention bahwa kita punya career support, kita punya career fair, dan mungkin selama pandemi ini memang kita shifted virtually, tapi sekarang udah gradually moving back to the physical one. Dan kita juga punya platform yang dimiliki oleh campus kita yang namanya Handshake. Mungkin kalau di Indonesia kan itu kayak job street atau jobs TV kali ya. Jadi student bisa type any kind of keyword, maybe accounting atau business consultant, emang kayak appear saja untuk whatever the jobs yang available currently gitu. Jadi selama itu kalian aktif, aku selalu mention ke student, selama kalian aktif, selama kalian inisiatif untuk working together with the career service and the career consultant, obviously pasti kalian juga akan bisa menemukannya, karena itu definitely menjadi sort of latihan ketika kalian benar-benar akan lulus, karena kita nggak mungkin ya apply kerja benar-benar setelah lulus. I mean pasti banyak younger generation these days, teman-teman pasti banyak yang apply kerjanya even sebelum lulus. That's definitely the smart way untuk applying jobs. Jadi kalian nggak ada waktu gap. Nah itu kalian bisa belajar dari gimana ketika kalian applying for internship. Jadi obviously itu nggak akan mudah. Tapi kalau kalian aktif dan memang regularly working on with the counselors, the career counselors, obviously kalian pasti akan bisa mendapatkan internship gitu.
Oke, ada beasiswa nggak kira-kira Mbak untuk masuk sini?
Ada, jadi untuk beasiswa sendiri mungkin yang aku bisa mention adalah untuk tahun ini ya. Jadi kalau untuk beasiswa kita ada scholarship up to 40%. Jadi untuk uang sekolah mungkin kalau aku bisa mention untuk level undergraduate itu di 31.200. Dan so far untuk scholarship kita di tahun ini untuk fall 2022 ini itu di maksimum 14.500. Jadi untuk teman-teman kalau misalkan memang sekarang masih a bit galau, masih considering quite a few different universities currently mau apply kemana, bisa coba apply dulu, bisa get in touch dulu sama AECC, atau mungkin kan minggu ini AECC bakal ada virtual fair ya, jadi mungkin bisa register dulu. Jadi untuk nanya-nanya, mungkin aku bisa memberikan giving more insight dan juga more information about the scholarship. Miles, actually we're talking about the scholarship, but then like just kind of like out of my own curiosity, because since we are offering for the scholarship for freshman students, but then a lot of students actually asking me, will there be any further scholarship or maybe like a further additional scholarship once they're already being enrolled as a student?
Yeah, there are definitely opportunities there if they apply for them. Now, once students are admitted to ASU, they will be automatically considered for scholarships. So on the low end, students might be getting about a few $1,000s, and on the high end, it can be going up to about 45, almost 50% scholarship.
Wow.
The students are getting. They don't have to do anything once they apply to the university to get that, so it's all totally automatic. They don't have to be submitting any extra documents or anything. So most students I see tend to get some form of scholarship. Now, beyond that, there are a lot of scholarships that students can apply for. Business programs, they do have what they're called general scholarships. So these are scholarships that really what it is it's hundreds of different scholarships that students can apply for, but they only have to put in one application. So they'll put in their application to these general scholarships, and then the people who work on the scholarships are going to go through that application, and they're going to try to match them with as many scholarships as they match for, and then make sure that they get awarded those scholarships. Sometimes there are none, but sometimes there are quite a few that students can get. Now, the main way that they're going to get those is one through like their basic documents, but also through like a statement of purpose, where they're going to give a little background on who they are. So there are scholarships out there for every sort of student. There are scholarships out there for women in STEM majors. There are students out there, scholarships out there for students from Asia, for children of single mothers, for children of military soldiers, for children
Wow.
of there are scholarships out there for military veterans. So if you
Hmm.
don't mention that you are the child of a single mother, if you don't mention that you are a military veteran in your purpose, they're not going to be able to match you with those. So a real key strategy when you apply for those is to really give all the information about who you are as a person.
Information, whatever the background that you got to tell.
Exactly. So you need to help them out. So those are one of the forms of scholarships. There's also a lot of private scholarships that are available out there as well.
Mhm.
And you can find all of these on the ASU website, where a lot of private individuals or companies will donate sometimes just like $1,000, $500, $2,000 scholarships that students can apply for. And usually what you're having to do is maybe write like a small paper on a certain topic in order to apply for those. So it could be something like, for example, specifically for mechanical engineering students, and you have to write, how can mechanical engineering improve the world? And write like a 2-page paper. But that might be like $1,000
Okay.
right there. It could be really anything. I saw a scholarship once from a local restaurant that had asked for a 2-page paper on what makes a fantastic dining out experience, what makes great customer service at a restaurant, and that's like 2 pages on that, and that was like $1,000 scholarship.
It's worth it though.
Yeah. So there are a lot of different scholarships out there that students can apply for, but you just have to go out and get them. And if you can apply for a few of those and get a few of those, that can make a real difference in the cost of your education.
Great. Mungkin aku mau add up sedikit aja sih Pak Ferry. Jadi kalau untuk dari scholarship sendiri, nggak tertutup untuk S1 dan hanya untuk S1 ya. Jadi untuk S2 pun kita juga ada, tapi memang a smaller amount of the scholarship. Tapi obviously kita masih offer juga. Dan mungkin ini aku yakin juga untuk dari sesi ini kan pasti ditonton dari seluruh Indonesia ya. Jadi mungkin teman-teman untuk dari yang di Indonesia Timur, kalau teman-teman tahu untuk namanya untuk government scholarship yang diberikan oleh pemerintah Indonesia kan ada yang namanya LPDP ya. Jadi kalau untuk LPDP sendiri banyak sekali juga teman-teman cashback aku untuk AEC ini masuk ke LPDP apa tidak. Mungkin aku bisa mention ini quite a good, not so good kind of news. Jadi kalau untuk LPDP regular kita unfortunately masih belum masuk. Tapi kalau untuk teman-teman yang berada di area afirmasi, untuk LPDP afirmasi kita masuk. Dan kalau LPDP regular kan biasanya ada spesifik program ya yang di requiring untuk maksudnya yang diperbolehkan gitu untuk dari allowing students-nya masuk program apa. Cuma kalau untuk LPDP afirmasi kita allowing all the programs. Jadi untuk teman-teman yang memang ada rencana untuk apply LPDP afirmasi, obviously any kind of program under ASU itu possible untuk di-apply. Mungkin atau at the same time juga ada Fulbright. Saya masih memang belum banyak sih yang untuk reach out ke aku untuk Fulbright scholarship application ini ya. Jadi yang paling sering itu adalah di LPDP afirmasi. But last but not least, kalau aku boleh mention juga untuk sekolah Thunderbird kita, jadi if you guys kind of aware untuk dari Thunderbird School of Global Management kita, itu mereka juga offering scholarship. Dan itu memang ada up to 100%. Jadi memang ada, tapi obviously competitiveness-nya akan tinggi ya. Jadi kalau misalkan teman-teman mau tahu lebih banyak, mungkin aku bisa suggest-kan untuk reach out ke AECC langsung, atau misalkan join aja ke virtual fair-nya yang minggu ini. Karena obviously kalau untuk the full scholarship offer, itu nggak akan menjadi sesuatu yang jadi mungkin aku bisa memberikan informasinya, tips-tipsnya itu nanti mungkin kalau misalkan kita ketemu di Sabtu ini, atau memang di private 101 session kita nanti.
Oke. Mengenai kan ini kan ada student clubs ya dan komunitas ya di ASU ya. Itu mungkin bisa di describe little bit sedikit gitu, Mbak.
Oke. Kalau untuk mungkin yang aku akan cover itu adalah dari sisi Indonesian students-nya ya. Jadi definitely ketika Indonesian students moving to US, study in the US, pasti mereka akan tanya apakah ada nih Indonesian students community atau organization di sana. Dan mungkin kalau aku bisa mention, memang ada beberapa tipe university di US yang memang memiliki permiasnya masing-masing. Jadi permias itu adalah Persatuan Mahasiswa Indonesia di Amerika Serikat. Biasanya a big university mereka punya their own individual that respective University of Indonesian Student Organization. Tapi kalau untuk dari Phoenix, dan memang masih ada beberapa university atau beberapa city lah di states yang memang kalau untuk dari organization-nya itu masih within the city. Jadi kalau untuk dari Arizona ini kita punya Permias, tapi permiasnya memang for all Phoenix area. Jadi nggak hanya untuk AEC student. Dan in the way kalau aku boleh mention, is quite a good way untuk kalian bisa make friends. Jadi in the way nggak hanya berteman dengan anak-anak AESU ya. Mungkin on the other hand kalau aku bisa mention, kalau untuk dari komitinya sendiri, sebenarnya kalau kebanyakan anak-anak AESU. Jadi kalau ada event pun kebanyakan itu take place-nya di AESU campus. Tapi memang untuk dari membernya sendiri, kita nggak hanya limited itu hanya untuk AESU student. Jadi memang untuk dari membernya sendiri, permias itu bisa digunakan dan bisa di-apply dari semua students yang mungkin nggak hanya di Phoenix lah ya, karena kita pakai permias Phoenix itu kan karena memang capital city dari Arizonanya. Tapi if you have a chance kalau misalkan studentsnya mungkin dari Tucson atau dari di other part of Arizona, mereka mau join, obviously kita nggak mungkin menolak lah. Itu pasti kita definitely akan welcome gitu. Dan so Miles, if we're just talking about the student organization, and I just mentioned about the Indonesian student organization, which it's for AECU, like we don't really have like a specific Indonesian student organization just for AECU, but then like this Indonesian student organization, it applies for the whole Phoenix area.
Mhm.
But then aside from the Indonesian student organization, what kind of organization that AECU have? I mean, like you already mentioned that it's already offered 1,000 different clubs and organizations, but then like do AECU normally have just a specific for the study major, or maybe like a sport specific clubs, or maybe like any kind of interesting clubs or organization that you just find that I think is really unique that AECU have it and then the other university don't really have it?
Yeah, like I said, there are over 1,000 different clubs that students can join, and it really covers everything you just mentioned. There are sort of those like paraprofessional clubs for students that are, interested in, for example, marketing clubs and public speaking clubs. For students that are doing programs like cybersecurity, there are hacking clubs that they can do, and they have hackathons that they participate in and hold and things like that. Engineering clubs, robotics clubs, where they go and compete against other teams around the country for sort of different robotics projects and robotics challenges. So a lot of those are going to be geared towards students improving their skills for their major, which are going to go on to make them more marketable when they start looking for jobs and for their career. So there are a lot of those. There are a lot of sports clubs as well. So I think almost any sport you could imagine, there's probably a club to be able to play that. So a lot of times students are interested in playing sports when they come and study in the US. They think that means that they have to play for like the university team or something like that. But there are a lot of club teams that they can join, which really tends to fit a lot better with student schedules as well, in terms of going to class and taking tests and things like that. So yeah, I can't think of many sports that you wouldn't be able to join a team and play at ASU, compete against other teams at ASU, and even compete against other universities like Northern Arizona University or University of Arizona or something like that. They do compete against each other as well. And then there are clubs that are kind of just for fun too. So we have, hiking clubs, we have film clubs, we even have a chocolate eating club that students can join. So really kind of anything that students are interested in participating in, they can get involved in. So I think as far as the international students I talk to, almost all of them are active in at least one or two different clubs, which is a big way you make friends, which is a big way you kind of get more integrated into the university and feel more at home here.
Just last one question in regards to the club and organization. How do they be able to find the list of the student clubs and organization? I mean, that's definitely the question that will appear.
There's a couple main ways. One, there is a database on the ASU website where students can find all the clubs. There's a link to their website where they're going to be able to find their meetings coming up, club officers, how to join, different activities that are coming up. So that's all available on the website. It's a pretty easy database. It's pretty easy to use, the database. So most students can find them that way. Also, at the beginning of each semester, there's going to be basically an entire day where all the clubs come out and they go to like the main area.
Recruitment.
They all set up a table. Yeah, and it's like a recruitment day for the club. So, students can spend an hour or two just walking around, looking at all the different clubs. If anything's interesting to them, they just write their name down, and that club will contact them on how to join. So there is basically an entire day of club recruitment at the beginning of each semester.
Oke, great. Ya, jadi untuk teman-teman nggak perlu khawatir ya, karena memang banyak banget yang get back aku, mungkin udah apply atau misalkan mau apply dan pasti pertanyaannya gitu. Terus gimana cara tahu untuk list of student organization dan clubs-nya? Yang tadi Mal sudah mention, bisa ke website-nya langsung, dan mungkin yang paling cepat juga bisa cek di Instagram ya. Even myself, kalau misalkan I do my own research pun juga kalau lihat di Instagram pasti akan keluarnya cukup banyak sih untuk list-nya. Gitu. Yes.
Oke, ya kalau misalkan seperti ini Mbak, bedanya apa ASU ini kalau dilawan dengan universitas lain gitu? Ini kan comparison kan,
Oke.
ada perbedaan tuh kan.
Yes, betul betul. Oke, mungkin, bakal ada a few different points ya, kenapa harus mungkin unique selling point-nya atau kenapa harus consider ASU. Mungkin yang aku
Ya.
mau mention first thing first yang mungkin kayak it appears in all any kind of ASU branding, ASU marketing activities, bahwa ASU adalah the most innovative university in United States for 7 consecutive years. Dan itu mungkin something yang while it's big, it sounds really big and it is big, kalau untuk dari ASU sendiri karena obviously itu akan, menjadi faktor juga a lot of factor kenapa kita bisa menjadi the most innovative university in United States dan mungkin, furthermore itu 7 tahun berturut-turut. Dari research-nya, dari quality of teaching-nya, dari, ranking of our program. Sekarang mungkin, ranking pun tadi aku udah mention ya dan mungkin kalau aku bisa mention banyak student-students yang melihat itu ranking, oke mungkin kalau aku bisa bilang Indonesian students itu ada cukup, perbedaannya masing-masing lah ya. Ada yang melihat rankingnya itu based on QS lah, ada yang time higher lah. Tapi again ketika aku ngobrol dengan mereka, aku harus emphasize bahwa memang kalau untuk US sendiri kita paling sering, kita often itu adalah melihatnya dari US News. Dan kalau kita ngelihat dari ranking, biasanya US News itu pun mereka punya beberapa ranking, ranking point. Jadi ada yang nasionalnya, ada yang publiknya, dan innovation-nya ataupun subject ranking-nya. Dan memang most of our subject ranking pun itu masih masuk ke dalam top 20, top 30, top 40, and top 50. Jadi definitely bisa menjadi salah satu key point. Dan mungkin yang paling aku sering mention, mungkin kalau teman-teman yang udah pernah ketemu aku juga ya, virtually atau physically, yang paling aku mention adalah opportunities-nya. Bukan hanya dari university-nya sendiri, karena obviously university aku sama mention itu adalah semacam bridging ya. Mereka dari high school, mereka purely baru lulus SMA gitu ya. Terus mereka harus jump into the workforce. Nah, university itu adalah bridge-nya. Dan memang kita malas memilih, obviously pasti akan cari university-nya yang bagus lah. Nggak mungkin kita mencari university-nya yang so-so. Tapi obviously student juga harus melihat dari opportunities-nya. Apalagi ketika students decide oleh their parents untuk study in the United States, investment-nya nggak akan rendah, investment-nya pasti akan tinggi. Tapi gimana kita melihat ketika mereka memilih university ataupun lokasi dari university itu di city itu atau di state itu, tapi mereka memiliki potensi, obviously potensi mereka untuk mencari kerja dan stay back di sana pun juga tinggi. Jadi mungkin kalau aku bisa bilang bukan hanya university-nya aja, tapi dari potential of the city-nya itself sih, gitu. Mas, Ferry actually just asked me about, okay, so what is the unique selling point and why students should consider ASU than the rest of the university in the United States? Because like we have offer 4,000 different choices. Why?
Yes.
I think, and also one further question, because there's a lot of students kind of like asking me why, okay, they still kind of like in the hesitation of choosing going straight to the university or maybe like they just go to the college or maybe like they're starting up maybe in Indonesia first for the first 2 years and then they go. So can you just like emphasize why should students actually starting the university straight away and just go directly to US?
Yeah, so I think you asked me 2 questions: why ASU and
Yeah.
about options between transferring versus coming to the university directly.
Yes.
I think that as far as students attending university in the US, every student's looking for something a little bit different. Some students do want, a huge university with a lot of resources, exactly what we described from the Tempe campus. Some students
Right.
aren't looking for something like that. They're looking for something a little bit quieter, a little bit more intimate, a little bit smaller. Here at ASU, we do have all of those. So I mentioned we have 4 different campuses in the Metro Phoenix area. So besides the Tempe campus that we kind of focused on during this session, we do have the West Campus, the Downtown Campus, and the Polytechnic Campus. So whether students looking for something like Tempe campus or they're looking for an urban university feel, like they would like to study in New York or something like, or Chicago or something like that. They could go to the downtown campus and get that experience there. If a student's looking for something more like a small liberal arts college or maybe a small private school, that's a lot more similar to the West Campus, where you walk around and everybody knows who each other is and everybody knows each other's names. So that's something they can find there. I mentioned all the different major choices that we have. Almost anything a student wants to study, they can study here at ASU. And all of those programs are going to be quite highly ranked as well, and really, really good quality of education. So really, anything a student's looking for, they're going to be able to find here. And they're not going to have to deal with, for example, if they decide they want to change their major, which a lot of students do, decide they want to change their major, they're not going to have to transfer to a different university or something like that. It's really kind of a 5-minute process, and it's all very simple. Because if they want to change from engineering to business, we have engineering and business. Not every university does, or they might only be good in one of those. So that's a really good option for them. So really, I think it's something has something for everybody. And no matter who you are or what your personality is or what you want to study or what your career options are, you'll be able to find a place here at ASU that will work really, really well for you. And I think that's one of the strengths of ASU here. As far as going to the university directly versus going to community college first versus maybe going to school starting in Indonesia then transferring here, I think everybody has their own plan, and everybody's going to have to find something that works best for them. The transfer process can be quite a headache compared to just starting directly.
Yes.
You might take 2 years of courses and find out, turns out only half your classes are actually transfer and apply to your major. So,
Right.
Half the classes you took aren't even going to count towards your major. You may have taken 2 years in Indonesia and you come here and you find out you still have 3 years left to study in your undergraduate degree. That can be the same going from community college to university as well, depending on where you went to community college and where you're going to university. So there's a lot to think about in terms of that. I know students might consider that a good way to save money, or might consider that a good way to maybe to get a taste of education in the US on a maybe smaller scale before going to university. And that might work for some students, but it does come with its own set of issues and headaches and problems as well. I think it's a much better idea just for students to attend university directly, especially for undergraduate programs. Go there, start from the first year, spend all 4 years there, really become a part of that university. The first year is so important to a student's university experience, in terms of building those academic skills and making friends and getting integrated in the university. And in a lot of ways, it's the kind of that first year that really determines how successful a student is going to be over those 4 years. This is one of the reasons why in the US, first year success is tracked so heavily. And it's so important to every single university, is that first year success. And so if that first year is at that university, then I think that just sets you up for success for all 4 years versus kind of, bouncing around in different schools and things like that. But that's my own opinion.
Yep. Okay. There's a question, sir, from Mr. Audrey. I know living in Arizona is lower than the big states. How about the salary rate? In Boston, living costs are higher than the other states, but the salary rate high as well.
Okay. So yeah, you're right. Phoenix does tend to have a lower cost of living than a lot of other big cities. So I already mentioned ASU is the 5th largest city in the US. So we're actually a bigger city than Boston. But we do have, lower cost of living than Boston. So for example, if you were to compare Phoenix, which is a big city in the Southwest US, versus LA, which is another big city in the Southwest US, and compare the cost of living, in LA, if you were to get an apartment with your friends and maybe rent an apartment off campus, your room would probably cost you about $1,500, $1,600 per month to live in LA. For that same room nearby campus with your friends here in Phoenix, it's probably more like $400, $500 per month. So really different cost of living between like here in LA, for example. Whereas the quality of life is really not that different. anything you can get in LA, you can pretty much get here. So it's really similar. But yeah, the cost of living tends to be a lot lower than other big cities. Now, what's interesting about that is that salaries in Phoenix tend to be higher than the national average. I don't know why that is, but it is. So if you were to, for example, compare average starting salaries with ASU versus once you graduate versus average starting salaries for graduates in Boston or in LA or in Chicago, it's really not that different. There are schools in San Francisco where a lot of students will go there to go study, for example, computer science. And I think their average starting salaries for a computer science major versus our starting salaries for a computer science major is like $1,000 difference per year. But think of how big the cost of living is in San Francisco versus in Phoenix. Their cost of living is double what it is here, but the starting salaries are only like $1,000 different. Here at ASU, our average starting salary for international undergraduate students is $54,000 per year. That's for international students specifically. For a graduate student, that goes up to $88,000 per year. $54,000 per year, $88,000 per year. Here in Phoenix, you can have a pretty good life if you're making that much money. You can definitely have your own place. You can buy a car. You can have a pretty good lifestyle. There's a lot of other cities where if you were making that as a fresh graduate, that's really tight. I don't know how you would do it. So yeah, I think that's important to look at too. Check out when you're looking at different universities, if that's important to you, look at the average starting salaries as well as the cost of living there.
Thanks. Okay, since we are running out of time right now, okay, there's a question here. Syarat utama TOEFL untuk bisa masuk di fakultas. What's the TOEFL requirements to get into the program? Average, like on the average, sir.
Which program?
Okay, I think I'll just
Yes,
I think I'll just cover it. Generally speaking about the entry requirement. Jadi untuk Zainal Abidin, basically kalau untuk dari AECC sendiri mungkin just a general requirements. Jadi kita requiring itu academic transcript dan juga English. Kalau untuk academic transcript, karena kan kita juga nggak tahu ya ini untuk level undergraduate atau graduate. Pokoknya basically kita akan looking at GPA 3.0. Regardless itu apakah untuk level undergraduate, kalau undergraduate yang which means kalau diequivalentkan dengan national curriculum itu 75 ke atas. Tapi kalau untuk university, obviously the same GPA as we're requiring, jadi 3,0. Kalau untuk IELTS dan TOEFL itu akan quite vary, jadi bakal depends on the program yang memang ada di interestednya. Tapi kalau untuk level S1 itu biasanya 6,0, kalau untuk S2 roughly bisa 6,5 sampai 7,5. It depends on the program. Tapi mungkin additionally last but not least aku mau mention aja, kalau untuk level untuk university undergraduate, most of the programs itu kita tidak akan requiring SAT atau ACT. Tapi minimal kalau untuk graduate level memang masih ada yang tidak requiring GRE atau GMAT. Tapi mungkin kamu bisa bilang most of the popular programs for Indonesian students itu requiring GMAT dan GRE. Jadi ini akan tergantung dari program yang dituju. Mungkin kalau untuk dari kalian ini lagi nonton memang masih ada beberapa pertanyaan yang mungkin spesifik, aku suggest untuk join aja untuk di variasi. So anyway, kita having quite a few days left untuk registration-nya, jadi bisa tanya langsung sih. Jadi aku bisa cek juga untuk program mana yang memang requiring GRE, GMAT atau SAT atau ACT-nya itu.
Right. Oke, pertanyaan terakhir. Oke, ini kita mesti wrap up ya, udah satu jam Bu ya. Terus, what's the message to Indonesian students to pursue and start their education during pandemic?
Okay, I think Miles, you go first. I mean, like, what's the last message, or what's your encouragement message to Indonesian students to, applying to AECC or maybe like study in the United States
at this pandemic time?
I think, the idea of going and studying in another country, which I did as well. So I've studied in another country as well. It will change your life. It will completely change your life. It will completely change who you are. It will completely change the way you think about the world, the way you think about yourself.
Right.
Who you are before you go and you study in another country and who you are when you get back are two completely different people. And I think it's something that really can improve just who you are in terms of you as a person, but also, your career, your earning potential. your entire life path. And it's just something that I think shouldn't be underestimated, just how amazing of an experience it is. Fully take advantage of it. When you get here, definitely make American friends, definitely try American food, definitely learn about American culture, make friends from other countries. Don't just stick with Indonesian students, your entire time here. Really grow and really try to experience as much as you can. Get a great education, get a great career after you graduate, but just become, a completely different person and a much better person.
Great, thank you, Miles. Mungkin untuk saran dari aku, mungkin encouragement atau my last words. Pokoknya jangan takut, karena obviously tadi Miles udah mention ketika kalian study overseas, even myself, aku juga study overseas previously. Obviously itu bakal, I think once in the lifetime experience ya, regardless kalian akan bisa stay back di United States ataupun kalian akan get back di Indonesia, tapi obviously the experience itu something yang kalian nggak bisa buy ketika kalian memang setelah di sini gitu, dan mungkin opportunities yang kalian dapatkan juga akan sangat-sangat berbeda di sana. Dan nggak perlu khawatir, untuk pandemik juga kita udah buka kampusnya, jadi as you guys already know, kalau untuk US border sendiri pun juga kita nggak pernah tutup. Dan as of fall 2021 kita memang udah encourage all of our students untuk arrive in untuk go directly untuk attending all the physical classes di Amerika. Jadi vaksin juga obviously available juga di sana. Indoor kita masih requiring mask, tapi outdoor obviously kita don't require students to put mask on. Jadi everything pretty much udah gradually moving to the new norm. Mungkin aku bisa bilang ya kalau untuk di Amerika. Jadi kalian nggak perlu khawatir. Kalau ada pertanyaan, obviously AECC is here. Jadi bisa get back aja, reach out ke AECC. Mungkin kita bisa ketemu juga di Sabtu ini kalau kalian memang ada further questions yang kalian mau tanyakan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you Mr. Miles, thank you Bu Tiffany. Ya, untuk ini kita selesaikan, kita wrap up. Ya, kalau untuk ASU silakan ke AECC. Kalau anda sekalian yang bertanya apapun, nanti kami akan jawab. Ya, oke, selamat malam. Sampai jumpa lagi. Bye.
Thanks everyone. Thanks, Miles.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Looking for the right course for you? Welcome to AECC Global's Course Search, your one-stop platform for all your international education needs. Browse through millions of free, valuable study abroad resources to pursue your international study dream. To begin your search, type in your preferred course in the search bar. Filter by sub-course category, level of study, destination preference, tuition fees, duration, and post-study work visa. With a destination drop-down, you can search for the preferred destinations of your choice. You can also filter down courses like top-ranked universities in your preferred destination and their rankings. Browse through various career choices, and you can also browse through free student resources like articles on tips to study abroad, the latest news, etc. We are here to support you with every step of your study abroad journey. To explore your course options, visit search.aeccglobal.com.